You might actually want to keep the lights on for this one. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are stepping straight into the shadows of a truly chilling, unsolved mystery. We're going to unpack a terrifying journey into the unknown, a story pieced together from a series of deeply unsettling events in a remote village. It's a narrative that perfectly blends the heavy, eerie silence of a rural night with absolute psychological horror. And trust me, by the end of this, you are going to be asking the exact same horrifying question our protagonist's grandfather did about the infamous Third Portrait of Bhanpur. Let's dive in. So what really happens when a 2 a.m. train drops you off into a literal nightmare? I want you to imagine stepping off a train into absolute pitch-black darkness. A place where the silence is so heavy, it honestly feels like it's making a sound of its own. This isn't some bustling city station with lights and taxis. This is the gateway to something far, far more sinister. And the sheer suffocating isolation of it is what hooks us right from the start.
Section 1. The 2 a.m. arrival.
The creeping dread in this story sets in incredibly fast. Just track this timeline for a second. At 1:45 a.m., the train is moving through complete inky darkness. At 2 a.m., our protagonist, Arjun, who's traveling back for a grave family emergency, steps onto a dead, silent platform lit by just a couple of flickering bulbs. And then, by 2:15 a.m., the cold reality really hits him. He is entirely alone. The road outside is completely empty. No cabs, no rides, just a long, dark stretch leading straight into a dense forest. With no other option, he makes the desperate call to just walk. As he's walking, the silence just gets deeper and deeper. Exhaustion is really setting in. And then, out of nowhere, an uncanny guide steps out of the shadows. But this isn't just a friendly local out for a stroll. Arjun is faced with an old man wearing a red dhoti and sporting a long white mustache. But the absolute most terrifying detail here, the old man's eyes seem to literally glow in the dark. He calmly offers to guide Arjun, but then casually drops the horrifying little fact that people only ever see him when they're wandering very, very late at night. Before leaving, the guide gives Arjun this incredibly cryptic warning. Night waits for them. Some things are only seen from behind. I mean, how unsettling is that? He also throws in that Arjun's grandfather has hidden a lot of things. This exchange just builds this hair-raising tension because it makes it crystal clear to Arjun and to us that whatever rules apply during the daytime, they definitely do not apply out here in the dark. Moving on to Section 2, the Midnight Tea Stall. After walking down this seemingly endless path, Arjun stumbles upon something that literally should not be there, a tea stall, deep in the woods, surrounded by the most unnatural cast of characters you can imagine. You've got a deeply wrinkled old woman just slowly drinking from a clay cup. Right beside her, there's a man sitting completely still, staring intensely at Arjun without even blinking. And then the tea seller himself, who speaks entirely in these deep, unsettling riddles. When Arjun asks what they're doing out there, they tell him they aren't waiting for the morning. They are waiting for the night. Then the tea seller delivers this absolute gut punch of a line. He says, people who reach there are often more afraid of their past than the road. I want you to let the heavy implications of that sink in. Have you ever felt like a place just somehow knew your secrets? It's like fate itself is waiting in the dark. These strange figures seem to know exactly who Arjun is, exactly where he's going, and they're hinting at some very dark secrets tied to his destination. And then, things go from creepy to downright terrifying. The wind suddenly howls, and the stall's yellow lantern flickers violently. It almost dies out completely. From the impenetrable darkness of the woods behind them, the distinct, clear sound of a woman crying echoes out. Arjun totally freezes and asks about it, but the men just brush it off like it's his imagination. But then the old man points to the path and tells Arjun to walk straight and never, ever look back. At that point, pure survival instinct kicks in. Arjun books it. He flees blindly down the path, absolutely terrified that something unseen is right on his heels. Section 3. Grandfather's Warning. Frantic and completely out of breath, Arjun finally makes it to his grandfather's house. But the moment he mentions the time, that it was after 2 a.m., and the specific road he took to get there, his grandfather's reaction is just sheer horror. He immediately cuts Arjun off. He absolutely refuses to let him speak another word about it until morning, stating firmly that no one takes that road after dark. You know a situation is bad when the wise local elder is terrified. This deepens the mystery exponentially because it confirms Arjun wasn't just hallucinating, he walked straight through a known living nightmare. Which brings us to Section 4, Mukesh's empty house. The next morning, Arjun tries to brush off the horrors of the night and decides to go visit his estranged childhood friend Mukesh. Now, the contrast here is incredibly jarring. In Arjun's memories, this friendship was warm, sunlit, filled with happy times playing in the fields. But the current reality? It's deeply unsettling. Mukesh is living all alone in this massive two-story ancestral home. The family is gone, the house is way too big for just one person, the furniture is ancient, the walls feel oppressive, and despite Mukesh having a welcoming smile, there is this eerie, heavy silence just dominating the entire space. And then everything shifts. It's 1 a.m. Arjun and Mukesh had completely lost track of time catching up, but suddenly this foul, suffocating smell completely fills the room. It gets hard to even breathe. And then, cutting right through the silence of that massive house, Arjun hears it. The exact same sound of the crying woman he heard in the dark woods the night before.
Section 5. The Forbidden Room.
Mukesh steps out to fetch some water, leaving Arjun completely alone in this suffocating house. Drawn by morbid curiosity, Arjun approaches a locked door down the hallway. He notices the handle is coated in this incredibly thick layer of dust, which means it hasn't been touched in years. With the silence of the house pressing down on him so hard he can hear his own heartbeat, he slowly pushes that door open, uncovering a secret that was clearly never meant to be found.
Inside, he discovers a hidden gallery. As a kid, Mukesh was an avid painter, and this sealed-off, forgotten room is packed from floor to ceiling with dozens of his old, dust-covered paintings. Now, at first, Arjun feels a wave of relief, right? Like, okay, it's just an art room. But the air in there is ridiculously thick, and that terrible feeling of dread just hasn't left him. He starts walking through the gallery, wiping away the heavy dust to get a better look at the artwork. And this is exactly where the nightmare hits its absolute peak. Brushing away the thick dust on a far wall, Arjun's hand uncovers something different. Not paintings. He uncovers 3 distinct photo portraits. And whatever he sees in those portraits completely defies logic and strikes him with a primal, paralyzing fear. What happens next is just pure, unadulterated terror. Arjun lets out a blood-curdling scream, driven by complete, blind panic. With his heart pounding so hard it physically hurts, he bolts. He literally sprints out of the room, bursts through the front door, completely ignoring Mukesh, who is yelling for him from the dark hallway. He just runs blindly through the unpaved village streets, tripping over stones in the pitch black, driven by nothing but the terrifying image that is now burned into his brain.
And finally, Section 6. The Third Portrait.
Arjun collapses inside his grandfather's house, pale, shaking, and stammering out a confession about the hidden room. His grandfather is listening in absolute horror. The color just drains right out of his face. But here is the brilliant, terrifying twist of this whole narrative. The grandfather doesn't ask about the ghost in the woods. He doesn't question the eerie tea stall. No, he fixates on one chilling detail. With a voice heavy with total dread, he asks, whose pictures were they?
Arjun tries his best to answer. He tells him there were 3 portraits, but the very second he mentions the number 3, the grandfather is paralyzed with fear. His hair literally stands on end. He demands to know who was in the 3rd picture, but Arjun's voice completely fails him. The sheer memory of that 3rd portrait strips away his ability to even speak. He just stares blankly, completely trapped in his terror. And that is exactly where the narrative leaves us, on this masterful, agonizing cliffhanger. What could possibly be so horrifying that just the memory of it steals a man's voice? What exactly was in the 3rd portrait of Bhanpur? Think about that tonight. And thanks for exploring this mystery with us.